everyone, this is Allison responding to week 13. The first thing that comes to mind after considering my answer for this question, specifically regarding whether or not the protests are organized or if it appears to be mob rule. When I watch Middle Eastern protests on CNN, it all looks chaotic to me. It looks, it's kind of scary because there is an appearance of mob rule. Even if the protest is political within their own government or regime, whether it is anti-American or anti-Western because of a death associated to a drone attack or associated with a drone attack. When I see these protests, it seems chaotic to me. And so I want to be very careful what kind of judgment I render because through my lens, I would say it's all disorganized and a bit scary and chaotic. However, I believe if I start with Tunisia and we look at a vendor who reached his limit, set himself on fire, and look at the author's statement, or consider the author's statement that because of shame, he had just hit his limit of shame. It's interesting to me because I think that's really, shame is a strong word, and while I can't judge that, we've read throughout this class that the nations are, or the people of these nations are more aware than ever because of technological advancements in communication, more aware than ever that they are behind or restricted or more impoverished or whatever the issue is. And I think that with most grassroots movements, these start out in local coffee shops or bazaars or in people's homes, in tribal communities where people begin to voice a grievance. I do believe there is a certain element of organization. We see if we look at Jordan, which has recently had protests as well, and we've seen these in Amman for not a regime change but a government change. There's an opposition and there are loyalists, and sometimes the protests are because one of them wants to make a statement, and then sometimes it does appear to be everyone. I would say that in Syria right now, we see a lot of spontaneous opposition, a lot of spontaneous protest. And just because they're spontaneous doesn't necessarily mean they're unorganized, because these the people who are protesting have been experiencing, whatever the causal connection is, they have been experiencing triggers that have led to this public outcry. And this is sometimes for generations, whether it's it's sometimes generations. And I think I want to be cautious because there is an undercurrent, and then it reaches a boiling point, and then we see this public demonstration. And Professor Meredith mentioned that it could be for government change or regime change or complete national change, change within the nation. And I believe there is probably considerable preparation, if not propaganda on one side or another, or even on behalf of the state. It is reactionary in many instances, but I'm not so sure that it's completely chaotic. When I look at the LA riots and we see this response, that felt very chaotic. And when people destroy the property within their own town, and while that has happened in some instances, in others what we see is a group of people rioting in the streets, and then they go home and they have dinner that night. So and they come back the next day, or they say they'll come back the next day. And so anyway, my answer is that it begins. It didn't begin on the street; it ended up on the street. And for Egypt and Tunisia, currently what is happening in Syria, Jordan's king has appointed his 5th prime minister in response to popular demand. It's not going to end quickly. I doubt it will end quietly. And in Syria, where the opposition is being crushed militarily, it'll be interesting to see if this is a tool for Syrians again in the future, a mechanism for voicing discontent. I think it's been better received in Jordan, even though there has been some pushback from the government. Regardless, the opposition, the resentment, the shame, and the protest seem to have common threads: poverty, a youth surge, tightened controls over things like the internet or the media, lack of representation, lack of basic rights, oppression, and there seems to be a similar response. There's an undercurrent. There is not another means for communicating or creating change within the government, and then people take to the streets. So I'm going to be cautious. I'm not going to say that it is all unorganized. It looks unorganized and somewhat chaotic and mob rule, agendaless, pointless, and all of those things, but I think that that is misperception, and I want to give them a little bit more credit for that. Thanks.